new curator.
That's
Well,
it.
yeah.
Live stream.
Have you got
thing.
a passport? Do you have any to say?
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then, so that should bring up the story. Yep. And then highlight the word.
Now.
And then on that little curator, like, is it three dots or is it like a chain, like two interlinked chains? Well, because that'll put it at the bottom of the story, so it's not actually a part of the story. So you can do that, there's nothing stopping you from putting the container chip as well.
Yeah, I've asked for look at this. It's 69.
So I think in curator, you're doing a hyperlink, it's a matter of, you don't need to push your links. I'm trying to go from memory, you don't have to three dots. There'll be little links from chains, like two interlinked chains.
Yeah, and like
But you can click and that'll have them.
just jam a single thing.
Well, we'll keep practicing. We can keep practicing. It's just I'm not a kind of curious to have it. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get there. No worries. Bye.
And then, yeah, that and then that's, yeah, sorry. It'd be easier. Yes. Well, if you're gonna do one, and
I reckon Lindsay sabotaged Dickie's chair.
Yeah, I reckon so. Enjoys it too much.
my friend lives there. It's really good. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, he loves it.
Yeah, he reckons he feels embarrassed to put the invoice in.
Yeah.
Morning meeting.
Have lunch and leave.
And then,
You can just move them outside just because of people standing in the wings. Yeah, if that's okay. Just gets a bit squishy once they all come in.
Everyone ready? Yeah. At 10 a.m. this morning, the Bureau declared Tropical Cyclone Kirrily a Category 2 cyclone. We're prepared and ready for the worst. Now we wait and hope for the best. Our message to Queenslanders is now is the time to make sure that you're ready. Make sure your emergency kit is stocked. Make sure that you have enough essential items to potentially have to get through days without power. If you need assistance with sandbagging, please contact the SES. Our prisoners at the Townsville Correctional Centre are making up sandbags right now to give to people. If your home is not safe, please make the decision early to get out of it. 9 people have already made that decision and are in our evacuation centres. We have preemptively declared this a disaster. We have preemptively requested assistance from the Australian government and other states, including aerial assets and defence support. From here on, the Bureau will provide hourly updates until the cyclone crosses the coast. There has been an extraordinary amount of preparation work. We've already received 146 calls for assistance from the SES. Most of them are from Charters Towers, Townsville and the Whitsundays region. Most of them asking for assistance with sandbagging. A number of North Queensland schools are closed today. That's out of the concern about the impact of particularly wind at the time at which students would need to be collected from school. We're concerned about the level of rainfall that this system could bring and the likely result of that being flash flooding. And so again, we remind motorists that if it's flooded, forget it. That is one of the most likely ways we could lose lives to Tropical Cyclone Kirrily. Laura has more from the Bureau.
Good morning. Tropical Cyclone Kirrily is now a Category 2 system as of 10 a.m. this morning. It's situated approximately 420 kilometres northeast of Townsville. It is still forecast to make landfall as a Category 2 system along the Queensland coast between Ingham and Ayr, most likely in the vicinity of Townsville later this evening. A tropical cyclone warning continues for coastal and inland communities between Innisfail and Serena. This includes Townsville, Mackay, and adjacent inland areas, including Charters Towers. So as of this morning, we're already seeing gale force winds from this system. So we're seeing winds of approximately 70 to 80 kilometres per hour on Hamilton Island and gusts of up to 115 kilometres per hour. As we move through this morning and into the rest of today and this evening, these gales with damaging winds will begin to affect more areas on the mainland. So areas between Serena and Ayr will start to see these stronger winds from this morning, while areas further north between Ayr and Innisfail, that includes Townsville, will then start to see these winds during this afternoon and into this evening as we see that system moving towards the coast. There are much more thorough details within our tropical cyclone warnings about exactly which areas will experience how much wind and the strength of that wind throughout today. And as mentioned, we're now issuing these warnings every hour until we see this system cross the coast. So we're strongly encouraging all residents within that warning area to please keep up to date on what to expect in terms of wind speeds and rainfall today as this system moves towards the coast. As mentioned yesterday, Category 2 systems can see winds strong enough to cause house damage, bring down power lines and trees, and bring damage to caravans, and it also has the risk of producing power failures. So it's not just the wind, but it's also the flooding that we want people to be aware of today and the rainfall associated with this system. So as this system approaches the coast, a storm tide is expected between Townsville and Mackay. So this may produce larger waves. We could see minor flooding along the foreshore, especially in low-lying areas. The heaviest rainfall, so what we classify as intense rainfall that can lead to that life-threatening and very dangerous flash flooding, will be at the centre of that system. So as that system moves towards the coast, near the centre of that we'll see the heaviest amount of rainfall. but all communities within the current warning zone are at risk of seeing heavy rainfall, which can lead to flash flooding. We could see isolated totals of up to 300 millimetres in a 24-hour period as this system crosses the coast. In addition to the crossing, we can also see rainfall associated with this system once it has crossed the coast, and it will continue to bring rainfall even when it becomes downgraded, so it loses that cyclone strength and becomes a low pressure system again. It will still carry large amounts of rainfall with it. So we're encouraging all Queenslanders, not just Queenslanders in that warning area, but all Queenslanders to be across the forecast for this weekend, noting that this system brings a large amount of rainfall and also puts a lot of moisture into the atmosphere. So we could be seeing showers and storms across the south of the state that are producing more rainfall than usual because of the system in the north. So we're encouraging everyone today to stay up to date on all of our forecasts and warnings, noting again that we will be updating our tropical cyclone forecast and associated track map every hour for those communities in the warning zone. Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to start off this morning by thanking the community for working with us and their incredible efforts over the last few days to prepare for these events. Can I please assure the public that we are ready? We'll continue to work closely with community, with our district disaster coordination groups and our local disaster coordination groups as the cyclone crosses the coast and any subsequent flooding thereafter. The level of preparation, there's been over 40,000 sandbags now consumed to support the preparation by our community groups. I progressed two preemptive disaster declarations yesterday, both for the Townsville and Mackay areas, and those declarations are to ensure that our emergency services personnel on the ground have the appropriate legislative powers to be able to support our community should the worst happen. I also progressed a request for assistance to the federal government to assist both the state and local level with specialised planning officers so that we are ready to respond in both relief and recovery as quickly as possible. And I've been advised this morning that that assistance has been supported and will be available as of 4 o'clock this afternoon. Today I'll also be progressing a preemptive request for assistance to the federal government for further aviation support, both in rescue aviation and heavy lift capability. As I briefed yesterday, I'm very comfortable with the level of state-owned and contracted aviation support levels, but given the widespread flooding events that could occur post this crossing, we wanted to have that ready to go. The next few days will be critical, and I ask for the community's patience and assistance during this time. Yesterday, police and emergency services door-knocked all the low-lying areas around Townsville and provided advice to the residents, and we've already seen over 50 residents in those areas choose to self-evacuate and stay with family and friends. There are a number of evacuation centres already open in Townsville and a number of evacuation centres available to be opened right through Charters Towers, Mackay, Hamilton Island, and as the system moves further west. Please go to your local council disaster management website for the latest up-to-date information in relation to these evacuation centres. While the preparations have been undertaken over the last couple of days, today is the time to decide whether or not you're going to stay within your house. If you do not feel safe in your house, we recommend that you move to one of our evacuation centres. Please make that decision today, as the cyclone crosses the coast this evening, with heavy rain and wind, it becomes unsafe in the hours of darkness to be on our roads. So have that conversation with your family today and please make that decision today. If you are a visitor to our areas or you are in one of our campgrounds, please consider moving to one of those evacuation centres today. Overall, in the next coming days, we are planning for very heavy rain and potential flash flooding right across our communities, Charters Towers right out to the west, and our preparations have gone right through to Longreach. Now is the time for those communities where this tropical low, after it crosses the coast, may progress to consider preparing for those flooding events. Please check your local flood mapping to see whether or not you are in an at-risk community. And finally, can I say, please, this is the time to minimise travel on our roadway. Our preparations have been excellent to date. Please make those decisions now to move to a place of safety and stay there post the event. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and can I echo what the State Disaster Coordinator has said? The preparation for this event has been outstanding. This morning, again, we had our QDMC and we had all the mayors online, district disaster coordinators, and it has to date been second to none. The Queensland Police Service has pre-deployed a significant water, police and assets into the Townsville district to not only assist with Townsville but the larger Burdekin area when the cyclone crosses. Also, PSRT has been pre-deployed to Mackay and the Rockhampton area and the surrounding areas. We have 180 members ready to deploy once we know where the cyclone will exactly cross and what environment will be affected, and they will be deployed across the state. Additional local police have been sent to our smaller areas such as Ayr, Ingham, Palm Island, Magnetic Island, Charters Towers, also to the areas around Mackay, Proserpine, Bowen, Hamilton Island, Callan, Midge Point. That is so that when this event passes or through this event, that we are not only in the predominantly large regional areas but those smaller towns that may also be isolated, to reassure the public that they are safe and to also assist them through the response and the recovery. Can I also echo what the State Disaster Coordinator has said about making those decisions now and early? We have done with other departments significant door knocks to move some of our vulnerable people to safe areas into our evacuation centres. But those decisions need to be made now, because when the cyclone crosses and the winds have already commenced and the flooding commences, it is extraordinarily difficult for emergency services to come out and conduct those rescues in the middle of the night. So not only is it unsafe for you, it is also very unsafe for our emergency services personnel. We had a number of tragedies through our last disaster event, which was not that long ago. So can I please ask that you listen to your authorities, you listen constantly, that you are aware of your environment, and that you stay off the roads if you don't have to be on them. And always remember, if it's flooded, forget it.
Our emergency services are ready to respond to Tropical Cyclone Kirrily, and we're asking all Queenslanders to make sure that they are too. If you haven't already, please go to our Get Ready Queensland website. It's getready.qld.gov.au to find out very specifically and thoroughly what it is that you need to do to be ready for this response. We expect gale force winds that will be happening through the cyclone from 10 a.m. today, but we also expect the flooding event once the system moves overland as well. So there are two events that we want Queenslanders, we need Queenslanders to be ready for. So please go to the getready.qld.gov.au website to make sure that you are prepared and that you are ready for the cyclone and the floods. It's also critically important that people tune into their local council messaging around warnings that are specific to them. The warnings from the BOM, the Bureau of Meteorology, are very important, as are the council warnings as well. As the State Disaster Coordinator and the Police Commissioner have said today, now is the time to decide whether you will be staying in your homes or whether you will be seeking a place of refuge. And we have those evacuation centres that are set up now and ready to take people across the area. In terms of emergency services, our Queensland Fire and Emergency Services Department have been preparing and have people in place, experts in place, to be able to respond to this disaster. Only yesterday we announced a new Chief Officer for Rural Fire Service. That is Ben Millington. Ben joins us from New South Wales and has plenty of disaster experience, particularly with volunteers. So we welcome Ben into the new Queensland Fire Department, knowing that it will be incredibly important for the coordination of our rural fire service and our volunteers as we respond to this event. From QFES, we have 122 additional resources that have been deployed into the north, into the zone. That is on top of the north region and the capability that they already have in place. We've additionally got 171 interstate interstate fireys that have come in as well. So interstate personnel with specialist skills that are able to support our communities through the disaster. That includes aviation support and swift water rescue, and we've also got our damage assessment teams in place who are ready to start undertaking that rapid damage assessment of properties as soon as it is safe to do so. This system will not just bring cyclonic winds, it will also bring plenty of rainfall. So we're asking Queenslanders to make sure that they prepare. It is extraordinarily difficult for our emergency services to be able to respond during the event. So it is critical that right now Queenslanders make a decision around whether they're staying in their homes or whether they are moving to a safe place of refuge. My final message to Queenslanders: once the rain starts hitting, if it's flooded, forget it. It is not safe to cross floodwaters, particularly not in croc country. So Queenslanders, now is the time to be prepared, and now is the time to make those arrangements as the cyclone is upon us.
Thanks, Premier. Good morning, everyone. The message from Fire and Emergency Services today is pretty simple. It's the window for preparation is closing rapidly, so if you have last-minute things to do, you need to do those early through the course of today and then settle into where you plan to ride out this event. And if that means that you're not comfortable in your location, make the decision early to move to a place that you feel safe. A lot of preparation and planning has gone into this event, and we greatly appreciate the community support in doing that. The department has a lot of resources positioned in order to respond and support, but we need the continued support of community to stay informed, be out actively seeking information to understand what is going on in your local area and heeding the warnings that authorities provide and responding to them as appropriate. We've got, in terms of if you need assistance during the course of this event and it is life-threatening, please call 000. If it's not life-threatening, use the 132 500 number or use the SES Assistance app. We also encourage people in terms of we don't want you out and about during the course of this event. It just endangers your lives and the lives of first responders, and we've been very clear in our messaging around safety and floodwater. If it is flooded, forget it. We do not want to lose life through the course of this event through poor decisions. Thank you.
Any questions?
Has there been any reports yet of any damage to Hamilton Island or Sunday?
Thank you. No, we are seeing increased winds in those areas, but the latest advice I had at the Queensland Disaster Management Committee meeting was that we're not seeing any reports of damage. And a number of people on the island, tourists on the island, have sought some refuge in that location.
And that airport will be closed?
Correct, yes.
And the calls to the SES so far, I think the Premier said they're mostly for sandbagging help?
Yeah, correct. The sandbagging, the calls to the SES have been around preparation work, sandbagging assistance for the event that's coming on.
Just a question for Laura, if that's okay. Just wondering if there's been any changes to the forecast in the coming days for SEQ. Is that heavier rain still expected around Sunday?
So in terms of the forecast for southeast Queensland, we are still expecting to see shower and storm activity over the weekend, with an emphasis on that Sunday. So as I said, with the cyclone in the vicinity of Queensland, it's bringing a lot of moisture into the atmosphere over southeast Queensland, and that means that the showers and storms we can see over this long weekend could produce more rainfall than usual. So we will be issuing any thunderstorm warnings. So if we're seeing particularly high amounts of rainfall being produced from those storms or showers, we will be issuing warnings over the weekend to keep people up to date.
And Premier, sorry, keep going. Is it appropriate to be declaring disasters early according to the ABS before we understand the full scale of what we're facing?
Well, these kind of preemptive actions can make sure that we're ready, to make sure that our personnel have the powers under the law to do what they need to do. And so by preemptively making these So by preemptively making these declarations, we give our emergency services personnel the powers that they need to keep Queenslanders safe.
What additional powers?
Thank you. We don't make these decisions lightly, but the legislation allows our emergency services, our disaster management officers, the ability, for instance, to control roadways, to direct people to leave places, such as foreshores, for instance, if it's unsafe, also to enter places. It also gives us the authority to turn off certain things like electricity, gases if we need to. There are a range of powers that are all focused on keeping Queenslanders safe. And when we look at the activation or declaring these disasters, it really is there about keeping the community safe. The legislation focuses on prevention, preparedness, response and recovery. And it's the same with the ADF call-outs. We know what we saw during Jasper was things can change rapidly. And while, for instance, we have our rescue aviation capability on board, we know that, as we saw in Jasper, we needed to lift a lot of people quickly, and it's ADF that have that heavy lift capability for us. So by doing these preemptive requests to the Commonwealth, all we're doing is saying to our ADF partners and our Commonwealth partners that we may need to call on you for assistance, and can you have those assets available to us at short notice. We have ADF aircraft already positioned in Queensland, and over the last 48 hours we have looked at our overall aviation capability. We've made sure that we have aviation capability positioned to the north of the event, to the south of the event and to the west of the event.
Premier, I appreciate the focus right now is on the emergency and the cyclone crossing, but a question from the Gold Coast, people down there that've been through a lot with the Christmas Day storms and talk of more storms. What mental health support is available for people after weather events such as this?
We do have crisis mental health support that is activated as part of the disaster relief arrangements, and I'll get Shane to say more about that, or Nikki.
So we've partnered with Lifeline to be able to support the community in a crisis, and one of the key ways that we've identified of doing that is through phone number. So regardless of where people are in Queensland, they can access that phone number. So it's a Lifeline support that's happened for victims of natural disaster right across the state, and we anticipate that that will be needed more into the future. One of the things that I understand is that once you've been through an event like this, it's really traumatising when a second event or a third event happens. We want to make sure that Queenslanders aren't just looking out for themselves, they're also looking out for each other. And that's not just your physical self, that's your mental self as well. So we want to make sure that we're providing all of those supports to Queenslanders so we can get through this event and previous events together.
Premier, I've just got a question on another matter. Sure. So a psychologist has told the ABC 7:30 the overcrowding of young people in Cairns watch house is so bad that it effectively amounts to government-sanctioned child abuse. What's your response to that?
We make no apologies for keeping the people of Cairns safe, and sometimes in a state like Queensland it is inevitable that to keep Queenslanders safe we will need to keep people in watch houses. The fact is we can't have youth detention centres in every single part of the state, and there will always be a need to hold people who are arrested in custody, for example, while they await their court appearances or we're directed to do so by the court. We want to avoid that at all costs, but wherever it is necessary, then we won't make apologies for it. We are constructing a detention facility in Cairns to reduce reliance on the watch house there and in response to that need. But where our police do their job and arrest violent offenders, it will sometimes be necessary to keep them in watch houses.
Who is directly responsible for or accountable for how long a young person spends in a watch house?
Well, there is a system so that police, youth detention and the courts all have some responsibility, and I know that our police and our youth detention system work very, very hard to maximise utilisation of our youth detention facilities, to minimise the number of people in watch houses, and also ensure that whatever necessary supports those people in watch houses require, to make sure they get those supports.
Will there be any consequences for the psychologist Andrea Bates who spoke out?
No, of course not.
Laura, can I ask you, the Mackay radar is down and has been since 4:52 this morning. It says it's a technical or equipment problem.
Correct.
What's happening with that?
Yes. So the Bureau of Meteorology is aware of the Mackay radar being currently unavailable, and we have got our technicians, we've had them working on it since the outage occurred, so it's their top priority really to get that back online as quickly as possible. Noting, however, in Mackay we set up our network system with radars and with all of our networks to have backup coverage. So we have the Gladstone, Bowen and Emerald radars all providing that overlapping coverage over the area of Mackay.
Any timeline for that to be fixed? And in the middle of a severe weather event like this, people would be looking to that radar.
So our technicians are working on that, and it is the top priority to get that back online, but we would like to reassure the community members that it's not affecting the accuracy or the timeliness of our forecast, specifically that tropical cyclone forecast, as we do have the backup from those other radars in the area.
Is that of concern to you?
That was raised by the Mayor of Mackay in our Queensland Disaster Management Committee meeting this morning, and Laura was able to provide to the QDMC and to him that advice, that the nearby radars are able to provide them with sufficient data to be certain of their timely predictions.
Just on another matter, do you think the Prime Minister has broken a promise in regards to stage 3 tax cuts?
I'll leave the political commentary to others, and clearly they will answer those questions. My job is to be on the side of Queenslanders, and what I know is that under these changes, more Queenslanders are better off by more, and that is a good result for Queenslanders. If you think about it, there are a lot more millionaires in Sydney than there are in Queensland, and particularly in regional Queensland, and that means that Queenslanders, the overwhelming majority of Queenslanders, will be better off by this decision.
You will face an election before Mr Albanese. Do you think there's any danger of any damage to the Labor brand if the opposition goes for that Labor can't be trusted?
No, I don't think so, and I think at the end of the day the opposition will realise that campaigning against the majority of people getting more in their pocket won't be very smart politics. So, as I say, my job is to be on the side of the majority of Queenslanders, and this decision is good for the majority of Queenslanders.
Last question. There's been some vandalism down in Melbourne, particularly with the Captain Cook statue has been cut down. Are you comfortable with the way we currently celebrate Australia Day and the day that it's held on?
I don't have concerns about that, Stephanie. As you know, I had plans to recognise Australia Day with the flag raising ceremony in Townsville. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do that. But I certainly know that Australians are able to recognise a day in many different ways, and that's what I expect will happen on Australia Day.
So just one quick last thing, do you think Mark Ailey is the right person to lead the Transport and Resources Parliamentary Committee?
Look, that's a decision that has not yet been made, and you'll get to find out who our new committee chairs are when the Parliament gets back.
Thank you.
Thank you.